And thank you very much for coming out and being a part of the event tonight to support Mark Stremler for council. District 4, which is where we all live. So my job is to introduce Mark to you if you don't know him, have not met him or spent any time speaking with him. I got to know Mark through my work at the Whatcom County Republican Party up until June when I had a little medical event. I was chairman of the party, and I was also on the candidate development committee where we interviewed candidates who were seeking endorsement from the Whatcom County Republican Party for their campaign and subsequent election. So part of that deal was if you want an endorsement from the Whatcom County Republican Party, you have to go and be interviewed by our candidate development committee, which went anywhere from half a dozen to a dozen people depending on who could show up. But we would bring the candidates in and interview them, a series of questions that were all conservative related, and we would look for the kind of responses that we believe conservative constituents would want in their representative. And some of them were very pointed, and some of them were very intimate. But we were looking for answers to those kind of questions. We didn't want to softball it, and in my opinion, we needed to throw more inside sliders on it. But baseball parlance there, I apologize for that. But we did pitch the hard questions. We were looking for specific answers, and Mark's responses to all of our candidate development committee questions was exactly what we were looking for. So our job at that point was then to forward a recommendation to the Whatcom County Republican Party, the PCO's precinct committee officers, that we are recommending this candidate for your consideration to endorse him. So we did our job. We said, good guy, good to go, endorse him, and then he went before the Whatcom County Republican Party at the next meeting for a Q&A session, and then voted on whether or not to be endorsed. And I wasn't at that meeting. I was just 2 days out of the hospital, so I missed it, but he did get endorsed. So I've had some time to spend with Mark, and great guy, great family, and I'm very happy and proud to be able to say I wholeheartedly endorse his candidacy. I think it's time for some changes in our leadership in the county council. I think it's time for a few people to step aside now and let new fresh blood come in with some good strong ideas, conservative ideas that they won't waver on. That's all we have left is our conservative values, and Mark will take care of that for us. So no further ado, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Larry and Lindy, for opening your home. Where are you, Lindy? She's hosting. She's working. Hi, Dom. Hi. So this is pretty overwhelming. When we started this, I had literally no idea what I was getting into, because this is new for me, and I really didn't know what the support was going to look like, right? I just didn't. And I gotta say, I have hope for this county, this state, and this country, because there are still amazing people around here. And this is a small group of them. So thank you for coming and supporting, yes, me, but values, right? That's what we're all about here tonight, is values. So those of you who maybe don't know me as well as others, so I am 59 years old, just turned 59. I married my high school sweetheart when we were seniors in high school back at Linden Christian, 1982. That was a big year for us. We graduated, well, sort of graduated. Had our first baby, got married. So 82 was a big year for us. But 41 years, oh yeah, I gotta tell you a story, all right? I kind of like stories. She's probably like, uh-oh, which one's it gonna be this time? So our senior year, we had been dating for a number of years actually up until then. And our senior year, we got pregnant. Well, she did. I'm going to say we. And when the word got out, this is at Linden Christian, right? So kind of picture this, right? This is no bueno here, right? So the school counselor, he pulls me. I get one of these, right? I come into my office, right? The first thing he says to me, he's like, you know, couples who start out like this hardly ever make it. And I'm like, really? I'll show you, buddy. That was my senior mentality at that point, right? I honestly think that was a part of bringing us to today. So anyway, yeah, we've been married 41 years. We have 4 children, and they all live in the county here. They're all married, and together they have 8 grandchildren. So, which obviously all live in the county also. And we have 2 of them here with us tonight. This is our son Derek and our daughter. I try to treat our in-laws just like our own kids. So thank you for coming. So let's see what else. So in my working years, in the last 41 years, I grew up on a dairy farm. North of Linden, up on the corner of 8th Street and Guide, which was actually my grandpa's farm, and then my dad's, and then eventually ours, which we farmed there for many years. And I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to work on a farm or grow up on a farm, but for me it was ideal. I couldn't have asked for a better childhood growing up. And I remember I went to Ebenezer Christian School, a little country school, lived about 1.5 miles from it, and I didn't really like school. So I rode my bike down the Guide Meridian, which at that point was totally different than what it is now. And I rode my bike the last minute to get there in the morning, and as soon as we were out, jump on my bike and get home. I didn't want to ride the bus, and I wanted to get home and work on a farm. Right? I just loved it. So those years taught me responsibility. They taught me about not pulling excuses out, because when the cows had to be milked at 3 in the morning, guess what? You went out there at 3 in the morning. It didn't matter if you were sick or you just had your wisdom teeth pulled or whatever, right? You went out there and you milked the cows. And then 3 o'clock in the afternoon, guess what? You did it again. And I was one of those guys who kind of tried to do everything myself, so I didn't really have a lot of hired help. So I didn't think anybody could do it as good as me, which was a downfall. But those were some great years. It was pretty awesome. In 1989, we were the Whatcom County Dairy Family of the Year. And then in 1990, the following year, we were named the Washington State Dairy Family of the Year. So it was a real honor to represent, I guess, Whatcom County. So after some time, we decided to step away from farming, and I went into general contracting. Did that for a number of years, just worked all around the county, doing this and that, and got to meet some great people, learn a lot during those years, and got to have our kids work with us here and there. That was that was fun. Yeah, it was. We'd get up early when it was hot. We'd get up early. We had this one enormous roofing job. It took us months. And it was hot, right? So like we get out there like 6 o'clock, we bang it out. By 2 o'clock, it's hot up there. So we had a boat then. So we'd head to the lake, go water skiing until dark, get up, do it again. Anyway, just flashback to that. And then eventually, general contracting kind of took a bit of a slowdown, and I that sounds bad. I applied myself at Whatcom County Public Works right over here behind the soccer field. So, and I've been there ever since. And I said to Sherry this morning, it's been, for some reason, out at Public Works, it's a different setting out there. It's a government job, right? I had to kind of get used to it. It's a different pace than what I was used to. But it's been really good out there. I have made some really good friends out there, and I feel I've just been used out there in a good way. And yeah, God put me there for a reason. So anyway, when I decided, or when I was thinking about running for county council, that was one of the first things that I looked into was, well, what about my job out there? I didn't know, like, can I keep working out there? Do I gotta quit or what? So I did find out that should I win in November, that I do have to vacate my job at Public Works. And that was a really tough decision. It was probably the toughest element of it, of everything, because it's kind of comfortable for me out there. I've kind of gone through some of the less desirable things and worked my way to a nice, comfortable place out there. And I feel like I'm kind of giving up the comfortable for the uncomfortable downtown, but that's okay. I'm committed to it. And there's been some people thinking that I was going to go to the council so I could give myself a raise and all this. It's like, I can't even work at Public Works anymore, so don't worry about that. Another thing that we did, one of our seasons of life, was we were licensed foster parents for about a dozen years, and had, I don't know, about 100 kids or so kind of come and go through the house, which was, it was good. It was good when it started, and it ran its course after a dozen years, I'll just say. But it was an honor to serve, the families in those years, and I have to thank our own kids for sometimes putting up with some of the situations that were happening within the house with all these kids coming and going. So,
How many foster kids did you have?
Over 100. Yeah. And the reason we did it, Larry, is we just, I don't know, we had a good family, right? We felt like we had a lot of love to give. And during that season of life, that's what we did. And we gave back. And the best part about that whole thing is our youngest daughter, Hannah, came through the foster system, ended up in the adoptive system, let's say, and so we adopted her. So pretty cool that she came into our life through that. So that's probably enough about me and my history. So I have been asked the question, I should have kept track, but I probably couldn't have. Why am I doing this? And that's been an interesting one to answer, because there's different facets to that. But if I go back to the beginning, why am I doing this? It starts because Sherry and I would often sit at home in the evening, and maybe we were having a glass of wine or something, and we would start, we kind of complain. Complain about the country, the state, the county. I don't know. Does anybody else do that?
We're a bunch of minors, yeah.
We were very guilty of that, but there came a point where I just said, we gotta knock this off. And so then the question is, okay, but what can you do about it, right? Whether you're an individual or a couple, it's like, how do you tackle all the confusion and the darkness and just stuff going on out there? You know, you feel kind of hopeless sometimes. About that time, Doug Erickson passed away, and I interviewed for his position. I was encouraged by a coworker of mine to say, he said, hey, you got to go apply yourself to that, like right now. So I did, and I went through a good part of that process, or the interview process, and ended up that Mrs.Sefzik went on in that, which was perfect. But in that time, I got to know some really, really good people, and there were some seeds kind of planted that I knew were going to grow into something. I didn't know what at that point. So fast forward a little bit more, and I began to look into our current representation, because we're just out there in the county doing our thing, right? Living in District 4, which is pretty much all I know. And I found myself a bit disappointed. Disappointed in the fact that I felt that the values and the heritage of District 4 were slowly eroding away. And those things mean a lot to me. And I know they mean a lot to people in District 4 and the county. And like Larry said, he asked, or at that process that I went through with him, you know, they asked some, you know, kind of conservative questions. And I've been asked that as we doorbell, they'll open the door. You a Democrat or Republican? Right? I'm like, okay, which way is this going to go, right? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm an American. That's my answer. I'm an American. I'm a conservative. I usually say, I am endorsed by the Republican Party. But I said, I want to go to the council and represent the values of District 4. So I'm not this, I don't know if this is right to say or not, I'm not this huge party person, right? I think both our parties kind of have some issues. Okay? But I believe in values, right? And I know all of you here tonight do too, and that's why you're here. This isn't for me, okay? This is for all of you here. And Larry, can I ask you to do something for me?
Depends.
You don't have a choice. So I have witnessed through this journey, and the farmer comes out in me here, but I've heard political bullshit, okay? People who get up and they say exactly what you want to hear. So if you hear political BS come out of here, raise your hands and say, wait, you sound like a politician. Can you do that?
One thing I've said about country people and farmers, they might not be politicians, but they know what bullshit smells like.
So, you know, I just think
I beg your pardon for my language, but it seemed appropriate at the moment.
So I've spoke at a lot of forums, right? And, you know, they give you a minute or 2 minutes to respond, and then somebody's sitting there and they hold up this little yellow card or red card that says, you know, one of these, stop it. So I wanted to give Larry a brown card and say, bullshit. So anyway, I have been absolutely humbled by the support and the encouragement and the fact that there are so many good people out there. I wish I could go around and like talk about a lot of people here tonight, but we would be here a long time. Others out there, right? So I'm gonna kind of wait till the victory party for that. How's that?
That's
Right?
right.
That's right. We're gonna have a party too. Just saying, I like to party. Don't take that bad, but I mean, I like to have a good time. And when we win 1 month from today, we're gonna celebrate together the fact that District 4 is gonna speak, and I believe District 4 will speak come November 7th. I do, without a doubt. We're working as hard as we can. I'm not doing this for me. I don't really have an agenda, or I look at our kids, I look at our grandkids, and it's like, what's the county gonna be? You know, as they move, you know, into, you know, well, as they become more and more a part of the county. And I wanted a great place for them. And I know so many of you got kids or grandkids that want the same thing. And I applaud all of you here for I think I said it to somebody earlier, for paying attention and being involved in whatever world that you are in, right? We all have our spheres. We all have our worlds, right? If we want to leave it up just to the county council or the executive or whoever, we're mistaken. We've got to come together and all do our part. And I'm kind of, what do you call that, speaking to the choir, because you guys all do that. But we got to continue. Sometimes it's easy to maybe give up hope, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep marching forward. So you all know my wife Sherry. She is my campaign manager amongst other things, and she is, honestly, she's probably working harder than I am. I mean, if we want to just cut to it, she is up every night, you know, doing whatever. And again, she's not doing that for her. She's not doing it for me. She's doing it for the good of the order, you would say, the whole. And so thank you from many. Yeah. I'll give you another little story. So this morning I had an opportunity we had an opportunity to do some community service, and we did that. We had a great time. And then there was a forum, a lunchtime forum. And I knew going into it that it was going to be, let's just say, a group a little different than this group. Okay? So I tried to prepare for that, and I was I was the second to the last to speak. And I will say that all the other folks that got up, there was 2 questions we had to answer, and they all said yes and yes to these questions. And I'm thinking to myself, sitting there, I'm like, I can't say that. I can't say yes to that question, and I cannot say yes to that question. So what do? I have a choice then. Do I get up there and pull the BS card and make them happy and like me and I don't know, vote for me or whatever, you know? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. I'll have to say, I'm just gonna pick on Kamal here for just a second. You're good. It's not bad. So our very first cabinet meeting that we had in our home, we all kind of came together and like, all right, what are we gonna do here? And Kamal said to me, he's like, stay true to yourself. Stay true to who you are. And thank you for that. Because there are people and entities who try to get you out of that. And they want to service their own agenda. And I will not do that. But I often think of when you said that to me also. And today was a good example of that. In fact, the person who came on last behind me took most of his time what is he, a county executive? And he tried to squish everything I said right before him. That's his right. That was his take on the day, you know? And I thought to myself, that's okay. In fact, I had a discussion with him afterwards, and he was trying to rail me on a few things, and I said, you know what? That up there, what I was saying, that's District 4. That's District... We have doorbelled, and I know others have done it for us also. We have doorbelled many, many doors, and we continue to do that. And when we go to the door, I say, tell me something that's maybe concerns you about the county, right? Just one thing, right? So my goal is to represent District 4. And ultimately the whole county, obviously once you're there. But I said to him, like, you know what? That's not me speaking up there. That's the 2,500 doors that we knocked on that talked to me, and I listened, and I said, okay, this is what the people are about. Love it or hate it, that's what this district holds on to. And that's what I want to take forward. So, I've never been much of a people pleaser or tell you what you want to hear. And in this case, it is my absolute goal to keep this county. Keep it. We got to do some changing. In fact, that's another whole story about what went on there today. But in fact, one thing I said, I'll just relay it. I said, you know, when your car is really going bad on you, like there is something wrong with this rig, right? You take it to the mechanic, and he says, oh, sorry, but you got to overhaul the engine. It is toast, right? Well, there are some things in this county that need an overhaul. They don't just need little tweaks here and there. There are some things that I know are near and dear to a lot of people, and that our county can do a whole lot better job on. One of the questions today was about the county actually like financing projects. I'm like, no. Sorry, but the county is not in the business of being a bank and taking all of our hard-earned money and sourcing that out as a bank. I cannot get on board with that. The other 6 people are, oh yeah. All right, have at her. But that ain't me, and that ain't District 4. And that, I don't believe, is actually a majority of the county. So, gosh, where do we go from here? So we got 1 month. 1 month until November 7, right? October 7 today. So we are going to keep working as hard as we have been, and I would ask that you join us in any way you can to move forward for the next month. And I'm excited. People ask me, well, even tonight, I probably got asked a half a dozen times, you know, how things going? And it's a difficult question to answer because I don't have this like measuring stick to say, well, okay, well, here we are, right here, right? It's like, it's kind of unknown, right? But since the primary, which I did win, by the way. So I throw it out there. That was so encouraging. And since then, there's been this like flood of people who maybe were just kind of holding back a little bit, and that's fine. I understand that. And they have like, well, this guy's for real, I guess, you know, and have, you know, kind of come forward and been a part of this. So I could get into a bunch of issues and all that, but I don't really know if you guys want to hear that.
I'd like to know the 2 questions you said no to. I know you just told us one. What's the other one?
Oh, well, the second question had to do with, really it came down to what's going on at planning and development and how building permits are
Ridiculous?
being processed or not processed. And, you know, should certain entities get favor or be bumped up? I said no, because I don't trust them. Sorry, I work for the county, right? I don't trust that that is something that they can do, is to play favorites. I hope they're not doing that now with certain entities or certain groups. I think everybody should get a fair shake, get a straight answer, and be able to do what they want on their property. And it just pisses me off sometimes how the government tells us what and what we can't do on our own piece of dirt. It just irritates me. We just built a house, and I said to Sherry, I was like, I will never do this again in this county. It was not, I mean, we had fun at it, but working with the bureaucracy is no fun, and it should not be that way. So when I say, you know, should there be some overhaul? Yes, there can be some overhaul done. So let's see. Trying to think of anything else. Am I forgetting, honey? Yes, Rex.
Dan Purdy is running for executive
Yes.
against St. Paul.
Yeah.
Are you and Dan on the same sheet of music, or where do you differ?
Yeah. So I have met Dan, I don't know how many times since filing week. We need to get on board with Dan. 100%. Dan is a qualified man for the job, and he's a man of integrity. He's a man of values, and he sees immense opportunity for him to do some fine tuning at the county. So I really appreciate Dan, not just as a candidate, but as a person. So, yeah. Anything else? How's your BS meter?
Voter free so far.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because we have 5 districts, but 7 council positions because of the 2 at large, gives a unfair distinct advantage to the liberal side of thinking in the county council. How are you going to handle that disadvantage coming up against? One of the things that I think is lacking is proposals and motions and ideas from the 3 conservatives we have on the council. They just seem to ride along with what's going on and don't have much of a personal opinion about doing something different. So how would you handle coming in the door, getting elected at a 4-3 disadvantage?
Thank you. So there's a few ways to answer that. The first one being, I enjoy sitting down with people who see things differently than I do. That doesn't make me nervous or get me anxious, or I am more, in fact, sometimes it's more interesting when it's somebody that has a different take on things than you do. And I'll give you a quick example of where I feel that I can do that is, so out of the county, I'm part of the Teamsters union. Unions are typically looked at as a bit of a more left progressive type of an organization as an organization. But all the members are just hardworking folks, right? So I had different thoughts about seeking their endorsement because of what people might look at me like. Okay, so but I'm like, you know what? I appreciate, you know, being a part of the union to a degree. Anyway, so I went and I sought their endorsement. So I went in, there was 5 of them and me. And for an hour, they peppered me with questions. Kind of like what Larry said. These were not easy softball questions. There was climate change questions, right? I'm like, you really want to go there? So after that hour, or at the end of that hour, they were like, you know what? That was the best interview we've had this year. And I'm like, well, why is that? I mean, I asked them why. They said, because you came in there and we talked. Like, we actually had good conversation. And we did not agree on some things. But we walked out of there, right? Like, I didn't sacrifice my values and what this county is about, you know, and they really didn't either. But we talked. And so that was their response. They said, hey, you came in here, you weren't a hell no kind of a person, or, you know, you weren't floundering on, you know, sacrificing things. They're like, you know, we respect that. So anyway, so I ended up getting the endorsement from the Teamsters union. Caught a little bit of flack from that, but that's all right. That's whatever. So how would I do that at the county? I've heard that council members get out of it what they put into it. I believe I have a track record of, if I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it right. So I trust myself to go there and work hard. Because that's really my mindset on just about anything, right? If you're going to do it right. So I hope that helps answer your question. One other thing I've done along the way in this campaign so far is I have identified some people in different realms in the county, whether it is a builder or it's a farmer. And I said to them, I said, hey, if something comes across the council desk that has to do with, let's say, farming, and there's all this language in there, and I need another set of eyes on this, because maybe I don't know 100% about this issue right here. I said, can I come back to you and get your take on this? Because that's your world, right? Like that's all they know. And every one of those people has said, oh, absolutely. We want you to come and engage with us. So that's, I don't know if other candidates do that. That's just something that was important to me, to kind of surround myself with really greater people than me, right, in their world, so I can tap into them, you know, as resources. So does that help?
Yeah. Since this is your first foray into politics, who would you say would be your mentor after you get elected your first year in, dealing with all that new stuff you have to learn how to deal with?
Wow, good question. So this is going back a few years, but I have had some really good conversation with Alvin Starkenburg.
My neighbor.
Your neighbor. Okay. Alvin Starkenburg was part of the council, I think it was in the 70s. Okay? 70s and 80s. And he's just a wise man when it comes to those kinds of settings. And so he is one person that I hope to be able to tap into as a, like, Alvin, what do I do? You know, kind of a thing. So that's one person. Alvin's a good old dude. Well, not old. He's older than me.
He's 80 plus.
Yeah.
He's a good man.
Yeah, he and his wife just celebrated their 60th anniversary.
Did he? Did they? Yeah. Yeah, I've visited with him a number of times. I just appreciate him more and more. So, yeah.
Don't let me ask all the questions. I'm sure
I'm gonna bring up
something.
two other tough questions.
Sure.
There's two big issues, particularly out in the county.
Yeah.
One is zoning,
Mm-hmm.
and the second one is water rights. Can you address those two issues and where you stand?
Yeah. So, thank you for that. So if, this could get a little bit technical, but there's a term called water adjudication. That is a process coming from the State Department of Ecology. I'm going to try not to bore you with this, but basically they want to control our water.
Yep.
I don't believe the people of Whatcom County want the State Department of Ecology controlling our water. But that is a massive push right now.
Can I just throw out one example? We just visited with Fred. He lives in an 1883 house, 5+ acres. He has 5 wells that he can identify on it. And they're basically saying he has to prove that he has had those wells before 1960 or something like that.
Right.
And even though his house has been there, they won't accept the fact that a well has been there also.
Yeah.
That's just one example.
Yeah. To me, it's about control. Bigger government means less freedom.
You're going to build it in the well moratorium that's on there for people that bought property and can't drill wells. Is there anything we can ever do for that type of thing to help rebate some of the housing things for people who can only buy a house and
Well-
that land that you can't even put a well on anymore?
Well, I guess.
Any hope, I guess?
Well, I believe there is hope to keep the Department of Ecology out of here. It's not going to be easy, but I think there's going to be enough effort in this county behind that pushback to say, not here. So, there's so much with that issue. And it's just kind of really starting to boil, right now. I will say that when I started this campaign, that I was encouraged to bring out some contrast between myself and the current representative. Less than a week ago, her words were, I am in favor of water adjudication. And I'm in favor of settlement.
What?
Those were her exact words. Sorry, but take my candidacy out of the picture, and as a citizen who lives off of a well, I'm like, no, we're gonna fight this thing. So,
There's another big meeting.
what was your first question?
The first one was water rights, the second one was zoning.
Zoning, yeah.
Yeah, right now the county has agricultural, urban, type zoning.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I grew up on the front range of the Colorado Rockies, and I saw that just become one massive urban sprawl. I'm afraid of the same thing happening here in Whatcom County. Can you address that issue?
that's a big one.
That's another big one. Yep.
That is a big one. The bottom line is people want to live here. People keep moving in. We don't want to stop that. We may think, we want to keep all the Californians out or whatever. You know what? This is a great place. And so how do we accommodate that? I think we got to get more creative with the zoning. We used to live on a 5-acre piece of property. And I am not well versed in this subject, okay? These are just some thoughts that I'm starting to put together. We used to live on a 5-acre piece of property, as did our neighbors. And I've often looked at that, or when I was there, when we lived there, like, there's room for another house over there. Like, we're not farming this. This isn't ag land. We had a couple of beef cows one time, right? So, maybe there's opportunity for, landowners to say, you know what? I don't know, there's room for another house here. you know, ADU units, accessory dwelling units, you know, could be an opportunity for some people. I think the cities have to do their part, right? Because the cities have a responsibility to create housing, you know, within their limits. Not sure they're doing that real creatively. So, you know, kind of making sure they're doing their part also. So it's a great question, and I don't know if I have a great answer.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to learning more about that and what do people really want or don't want. So that would kind of like be on my docket, like what's the feel out there. So that's kind of where I'm at. So, yeah. I'm going to invite my wife Sherry up and say a few words. She's been by my side the whole way since filing. Well, maybe you could tell them about that even. How?
Well, yes. Okay, so I just always close out here our little get-togethers. You know, when you're with somebody for, well, we've been married 41, but we dated for 3 years before that. So, like, you know, we've been together for 45 or 46 years. So, long time. One word that I think, that I know I can use for Mark is he is trustworthy. What he says, he will do. I've witnessed that over and over and over again in our life together. Even down to, you know how you make your honey-do lists for your guys, right? And I really don't have to do that. I will share with him something that needs to be done, and he just gets right on it. He really does. He doesn't procrastinate. He knows it's important to me, and he follows through. I watched him different circumstances or different settings that he's been in since he filed, and I've watched him have to really take a stand. I mean, today was one of them, but a couple other times as well. I've watched him take a stand for what he believes in. He doesn't care what other people think. He stands on the truth. So that's one thing I know he will bring to the council, is he will bring what his beliefs, his values, what you all hold dear. He will bring those there, and he will not compromise. So it's been pretty fun to watch this journey, because a few years ago I said to him, honey, I know God has something more for you than Whatcom County Public Works. Because for the first couple years it was hard. When you're a driven person, used to running your own companies, working for a government position, it can suck the life out of you. And I watched him do that. I watched him overcome that, though, and say, I have to figure out how to survive there and thrive there. Not just survive, but I have to figure out how I'm going to work there and be my best person. So I watched him do that. But I said to him, I just know that God has something for you. I said, I have no idea what it is, but I know that I know. Like, you know how you have those times sometimes that you just know that you know? That God has something for you. I would have never in a million years have dreamt that it would be this right here. Really serious. I mean, we've never even been involved, sadly, in what's happening within our political world. I mean, being, you know, exposed to Simon's campaign and helping in that was just such an eye-opener for us. And like Mark said, those seeds were planted. But it's so cool to see him, God answering these prayers, and just to be watching him, just to see him up here and speaking to you. Every word he says is just so incredibly heartfelt. And so he took it very seriously. Making this decision, we took a Sunday, and we knew we had to make a decision by the end of that day, and we took the whole day, and we just were quiet, and we were in the Word, and we were listening to music, and God just made it so clear to him that this is what he needed to do. Because you need to have something when times are hard in the journey, which, you know, there's been times that it's been hard. You know, people are not always very nice, right? I said we have to have something at those points that you can go back and go, remember what God laid on your heart here, right? And so it was just so clear to us that day, and it was so great to have that confirmation. And so our verse, especially in this last month, is do not grow weary in doing what is good, for in the end you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. And so we are not giving up, we are giving it our best, and Mark is just giving it his all. And so I just want to say that I just believe that he will represent District 4 beautifully. There we go.
All right. Another person that's been really instrumental is Jennifer Sefzik, and I think Jennifer has a few words that she wanted to say.
All right, great, thank you. Don't you just love them?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. They are so authentic and so real. It has been a pleasure to come alongside. It's so wonderful to see all you guys here today. Thank you for coming. And it's just so wonderful to hear Mark's heart and Sherry's. And from that day, December 20-something, when we were in the Whatcom County Republican office, it was a snowy day, and Mark showed up to make his little speech for the Senate race, right? Because they let all the candidates come and make a speech. And I remember sitting there thinking, wow, that is so cool. He just came out of nowhere, but he had a desire in his heart to serve, and we could see that. And so he, the next year, got involved, started helping, doorbelling, just doing the things to see what it was like to be a candidate. And so he followed through with that. A lot of people aren't willing to do the dirty work, to get their hands dirty, to do those things. And so he and Sherry were willing to do that for someone else. So we got to see their true character. But one of the things I think you'll appreciate about Mark is you can see his values. And they're solid. He has solid principles by which he lives and values, and those are lived out. As you can see the shirt I'm wearing, lovely. You see the back. Been out doorbelling for Mark quite a bit. Had the privilege of doing that before the primary, and then was out today working for the Ferndale School Board candidates, and then Mark. There's this echo. That's pretty cool, like an amphitheater thing going on here. But anyway, it's been so fun to go the doors in Linden, and it's like the first thing I say is, hi, I'm Jennifer, and I'm a friend of Mark. He's running for office. I'm just out volunteering for him. And how many people say, oh, I know the Stremlers. I know the name. I've met him. And it's just so positive, and it's just really inspiring to see that. The other thing that I think I'd like to draw a contrast between Mark and the incumbent that is currently in that seat. We have been saddled with a very bad policy that was voted on in November 22 called Proposition 5. And it came about as a result of a conservative, the incumbent, voting with the progressives to get it on the ballot. It would have made it anyway, so the incumbent really didn't have to vote to put it on the ballot, because there were 4 votes with the progressives to get it on the ballot. But the incumbent voted anyway. So as a result of that, they were able to send out mailings that said it has bipartisan support. That was confusing to conservatives, very confusing. As a result, it only passed by 20 votes, okay? Would Mark have voted for that Proposition 5 and supported it? The incumbent also came to the Whatcom Republican meeting and asked the Republicans to support it, to put out an endorsement for it. Rightly, the PCOs voted no, they would not do that, because it is not a solid Republican policy. It grew government, created a child health care department in our county, and is creating $100 million in 10 years in new taxes. Did you appreciate that 25% property tax increase you got as a result? You're feeling it, aren't you? The second highest property tax increase we've had in Whatcom County. I think Mark would have voted no. He has said that. He would not have voted for that, would not have advocated for it. The other thing that is very egregious about this particular policy in our county, and if you want to go on the Whatcom County website, you can look up the Healthy Children's Implementation Fund, and you can find the document. Anybody done that?
Yep. Done it. Page
80. there is an allocation of $500,000 for LGBTQ resources to go towards the preschoolers. To go toward because the funding for it is creating funds for government preschool. So, how's that for you? So anyway, that is not a policy I think most of us think is a good idea, and I know Mark would not have voted for that. So that alone, I think, is enough to give you, cover up the name of the incumbent and that policy, and that alone is enough to say, look, we need somebody who has true conservative values, who really does believe in smaller government and less taxes and protecting our children and not throwing them to the wolves in preschool. So at this point, my job is to wrap this up and encourage, you know you're here to give. We did no false pretenses about this event. We put fundraiser on there. And so Mark and Sherry have invested their lives in this district. Their family lives here. And so I think now it's incumbent on us to invest in his campaign. He's not doing anything fun with the money, I assure you. One of the hardest parts about being a candidate is actually having to raise money. I know. Okay. And so all of it is going for getting his message out. And I think the goal is to do 4 mailers, right? Right? 4 mailers. And how much does that cost?
Over $33,000.
$33,000. So I think, yeah. So there is great opportunity. We want to, sadly, since we don't have a free press, the only way we can reach people is the door knocking, telling our friends, and doing those mailers, okay? It takes a lot of effort, but those are major, major ways that a candidate can reach voters, is to target with mailers. So at this time, I just want you to, whatever you are planning on giving, I hope you'll double it, triple it, quadruple it, whatever you were thinking, so that Mark can hit that number to be able to get across the finish line. I realize many of you sitting here are not even in his district. I'm not either, but we still maxed out because we believe Mark represents us on the council. He doesn't just represent District 4, he represents conservatives. Conservatives on the county council is what he'll be doing. You won't represent liberals. There are plenty of those, on the council to represent that viewpoint. But our viewpoint will be represented through Mark. So, yes.
Speaking of liberals, I hope you don't mind that I want to share something that I just checked. So I'm kind of a keyboard warrior. And so I decided to reach out to the Whatcom Democrats. And I asked them this question this morning, and I know you'll forgive me for the way it's worded, but I had to word it this way. I said, "Good morning, just wondering who you will be recommending for District 4. Remember, this question is going to Whatcom Democrats. Incumbent Kershner, who has typically broken ranks and voted with the D council members, or Stremler, who is a union man." They said, "We have recommended Kathy Kershner for this position." There's a reason why they're recommending Kathy.
Yes. She was recommended in the Progressive Voters Guide. You can look it up and find, and they have a little paragraph on every one. And the reason they're recommending her is because they said she voted with them on Proposition 5. They were able to work with her on Proposition 5. So anyway, yeah, it's out there. So sometimes you have to look not what people say, but how they vote and who they are and what they do. And that's actually how we should always live our lives. But anyway, I would encourage you to give generously today. Help Mark out, even if you're not in the district, because we will all benefit from him being on the county council. We're so proud of him for winning the primary. That was just huge. You're outspent like probably 5 to 1 as far as money, but he was out there working hard, knocking doors, and people know he has a good name, and it's a pleasure to be able to promote the Stremler name out there on the campaign trail.
So my recommendation is there's some key locations that need to be hit and convince them to vote the other way.
Right.
Well, if I could say,
Yeah.
there's some signs outside.
Yes.
So,
There you
or somewhere. Thank you, lady. And grab a sign, put it up, or I should say, maybe ask the property owner. I don't like just putting them up willy-nilly. And that's a part that you can do. So that would be great.
Yes, and not everyone, very few, there's so many uninformed voters. People just don't know about this Proposition 5, the backstory, and the actual votes that are taking place on the council. In fact, Councilman Ellenboss was on Saturday Morning Live about a month ago, and one of the things that he said that was very telling is he said most of the time the votes are 6-1. And me voting alone as the lone conservative. I don't think he realized he threw her under the bus with that one, but it's out there. I mean, he said it, and he knows how the votes are going. So we need true conservatives on the council that represent our values, and that's what we're looking forward to. So our victory party on November 7th, but just work hard until then. So if anybody wants to go doorbelling with us, you know, you can go. I'll be going 2-3 times a week, and trying to have some great things out there. So anyway, question.
Just wanted to clarify one thing for anybody that may or may not know the process. As I had mentioned earlier, Mark went through the Candidate Development Committee interview process to receive or not receive endorsement to our PCOs to be endorsed. Our job there was just to recommend. We couldn't do the endorsement process. Our job was to say this candidate passes muster. We go to our PCOs and we say, we recommend that you endorse this candidate. Candidate Kershner did not receive that recommendation from us. Two-time incumbent. At the conclusion of the interview process, we said no. That's a collective body of different people within the Whatcom County Republican Party. It's just not one or two of us. And there was all kinds of hell raised over that. And she got her endorsement anyway because the PCOs and our bylaws allow the freedom to say, okay, we know you didn't recommend endorsement, we're going to endorse anyway. It was put out there as if we recommended she be endorsed. We did not. So you people need to know that. She was not recommended by the CDC for endorsement to be reelected. He was.
The true conservative is what we like to say. So, well, thank you all for being here. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, I just want to thank our hosts.
Yes, absolutely.
Larry. Lindy. This is their home. I know these kind of things take a lot of work. So,
We
in
had
fact,
helpers, Tammy.
and I know Tammy was, in fact, I stopped here yesterday for just a second, and they were already here yesterday prepping for today, for you guys. So, and Stephanie, and well, and I'm sure there's more. I don't always like naming names, but just, you know, Larry and Linda for opening your home and those who helped her. So, that's all I really got, but I do appreciate it. I do. So,
Okay, feel
all right.
free to hang around and write as many checks as you can.